नारायणाय परिपूर्णगुणार्णवाय विश्वोदयस्थितिलयो नियतिप्रदाय ज्ञानप्रदाय विबुधासुरसौख्यदुःखसत्कारणाय वितताय नमो नमस्ते। आसीदुदारगुणवारिधिरप्रमेय नारायणः परतमः परमात्म एकः संशान्तसंविदखिलं जठरे निधाय लक्ष्मीभुजान्तरगतः स्वरतोऽपि चाक्रि तस्योदरस्थजगतः सदमन्दसान्द्रस्वानन्दतुष्टवपुषोऽपि रमारमस्य भूत्यै निजाश्रितजनस्य हि सुज्यसुष्का वीक्षा बभूव परनामनिमेषकान्ते। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। महत्वात् भारवत्वाच्च महाभारतमुच्यते निरुक्तमस्य यो वेद सर्वपापैः प्रमुच्यते। यदिहासि तदन्यत्रायन्नेहास्ति न कुत्रचित्। देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुं गीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि लेशतः। लक्ष्मीनारायणं नत्वा पूर्णबोधां गुरूनपि कुर्मः श्रीकृष्णगीतायाः भाष्यादुक्तार्थसङ्ग्रहम्। हरि ओम्। Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly Pratipadartha room that we conduct every Saturday from 8 o'clock till about 9:30 or so. And during the course, if there are any thoughts that you may like to share, what we try to do is we break down the word-by-word meaning of the shlokas. And to accomplish that, we also take help from this web link that Vijayji has pinned under the room title. This is the website for the Aurobindo School, put together by Dr. Sampadananda. He's doing a lot of good work in terms of promoting Samskrita Bhasha, Deva Bhasha series. There are a lot of good books also that he publishes. We make use of this website. However, we will not take it as a final understanding. We try to probe further and perhaps take assistance from multiple other tools available. Right? So to that extent, if there is any shortcoming in the way the translations are being drawn, please do come up on stage and then we can have some very enriching discussion and we could all learn from one another. With that, we move on. Today we will begin from shloka number 29 of the 6th Adhyaya. The 6th chapter is called the Atma Sanyama Yoga, the yoga of Atma Sanyama, the self-control, or it's called the Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana is the state of tranquility. Dhyana can be the state of stoic behavior. So that is how some people call this chapter. Some versions of Bhagavad-Gita calls it as Dhyana Yoga, the state of tranquility, or the yoga of stoic behavior, or Atma Sanyama Yoga, the yoga of self-control, Atma Sanyama. Now, yoga can be upaya, the way out, way out, or it can be yoga, which helps us become yogya, just like helps us achieve that capability, the capability of achieving the tranquility, capability to be stoic, capability to have self-control. We can look at it that way. That's the chapter. And this chapter doesn't come uninvited, unsolicited. The last question from Arjuna was still in the 5th chapter. The beginning of the 5th chapter is where Arjuna had this question to Krishna. Oh Krishna, at once you praise the karmanam sannyasa, giving up of karma. That is how he heard it. In the 4th chapter, when Krishna says, yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna samshyam, towards the end of the 4th chapter, so he says, at once, once you praise the karma sannyasa, oh Krishna, then you praise the yoga, the nishkama karma yoga. Now tell me which is good among the two. Tell me very certainly what is good among the two. Right? Now, answering that question very briefly, to summarize that, the 5th chapter is where we hear the karma sannyasa was explained. It is not like the sannyasa ashrama, where we renounce all that is worldly and take seclusion in the forests, in the woods, in the Himalayas, and things like that. It's not that sannyasa. Krishna has been repeatedly clarifying that it is a yoga yukta sannyasa. It's a sannyasa, the renunciation of attachment to the results of the action. But we do the action, right? So that's yoga yukta sannyasa, which is karma yoga yukta sannyasa. It is not different from karma. So karma and sannyasa are very tightly conjoined together. Then it's not easy to do that yoga yukta sannyasa, being extremely engrossed in action while also giving up the attachment to the results of the action. It's not that easy. Then he explains the Brahmi sthiti, which is the being under the aegis of Brahma, doing everything for the sake of Brahma, doing everything for the sake of Atma Shuddhi. That's the second section. Why we do this yoga yukta sannyasa? It's the Brahmi sthiti sannyasa, which is basically restraining ourselves from any physical attachment, parigraha, to the material objects of the actions and things like that. So that's the Brahmi sthiti sannyasa. And then towards the last part of this chapter, we are taken to another explanation, set of explanation, which is the Brahma Yoga Yukti, which is the Antaranga Shuddhi, where the Brahmicity, we deliberate, how not to get attached to the worldly objects and things like that. He takes the explanation towards the Antaranga Shuddhi. He explains what it is to be pure inside also, without any kind of an attachment, right? But easier said than done. And that is where we are leading to this Atma Sanyama Yoga or the Dhyana Yoga. The same conversation continues, the same discourse from Krishna continues, and he leads us to this path where he is actually now revealing the techniques to achieve that tranquility, techniques to achieve that equanimity, techniques to achieve that stoic behavior. And in that first few slokas we saw, sloka number 11 of the sixth chapter, he starts explaining some of the actual physical techniques, Shucho Deshe, in a clean place. Chaila Ajina Kusha Uttaram, on top of the cloth, the silk cloth, the skin, the animal skin, and the darba, the grass, right? So there are different interpretations we could draw in terms of overcoming the Rajoguna, the Tamoguna, the Sattoguna, or having properly fed our three fundamental chakras of the Kundalini system, right? So the Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura. So in different contexts, we saw some of the techniques being laid out by Krishna. And after telling a little bit about the techniques of dhyana, he then goes on to explain some of the prerequisites for a dhyana, which is basically not too much of heavy consumption and not completely refraining from any consumption. Na ati ashnatah tu yoga asti, na cha anashnatah, ekantam. Like there is no yoga for somebody who consumes a lot, and there is no ekanta, solitude, for a person who completely shuns the consumption, right? And the consumption can be the food consumption, the consumption can be the sense experience consumption, right? So he says, yukta ahara vihara. So that's the explanation he gives, like, very, very moderate, consumption and the recreation, and yukta swapna avabodhasya, like, and then moderate sleeping and moderate staying awake, and then, chestasya karma, being actively involved in all our activities. For such a person, the yoga of such a person is a dukkha. It kills the. So he then explains some of those prerequisites, right, to perform the yoga, and then in the same discourse, he then goes on to explain the ultimate city. Ultimate city is the niruddha city. Niruddha city. He goes on to explain the state of niruddhi, where yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyati, where the mind is completely under its control, will not seek anything outside. It is happy, it's content within. And then sukam atyantikam yattat buddhi grahyamatīndriyam veti yatra chaivayam sitas chalati tatvatah. This the happiness that we unlock in that ultimate niruddha city of yoga is beyond the buddhi grahya, beyond the grasp of the buddhi. And then in that state, there is no way the mind can move away. Naturally, when we look at it from the tattva concept, it will remain very, very still. Manyate. Viruddha Sthiti has to be approached with a firm attitude, nishchayena yokta, with a lot of determination. We have to take that path, because that path, that city, is a city where that yoga is a yoga which is a dukkha sanyoga viyoga yoga. It's the yoga which will take away the attachment to the dukkha, that attachment to the miseries, attachment to the sorrow. It will take away, it will detach us from the attachment to the misery. Little complicated explanation, right? So it's the, so to say, right? So to take that path, we have to take it up with a lot of determination. Nishchayena yoktabhya. And yogo anirvinna chetasa, without any dip in the chetasa, without any dip in our intellect, or without any dip, without any reduction, in our firm resolve about it. Right? So some of the things that we hear, and then finally we are at a stage where he gives a few more ajñātaka upadesha. Like, this yoga city cannot be attained overnight. You have to have very firm control over the self. Sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyakta sarvan aseshakah. Give up all possible desires that can potentially crop up in the path of this yoga. And manasa eva indriya gramam. By the mind alone, we have to completely control the all the senses completely. Samantatah viniyamya. And shanaihi uparami. The withdrawal should happen slowly by slowly, not immediately, right? You can't give up everything overnight. It has to be given up slowly by slowly. Shanaihi uparamet. And not just like that, dhritigrihitaya buddhya, with a firm intellect. That's with a firm intellect to attain that yoga, in that path, in that resolve, we have to give up the attachment slowly by slowly. We have to withdraw ourselves slowly by slowly. And in that path, na kinchidapi chintayi. Should not think about anything other than getting the self placed in the hriddesha, in the anahata chakra, in that paramatma chintana, in the thought of the supreme. Na kinchidapi chintayi. Like, this is again a very, very firm ajna, very, very firm commandment coming by Krishna, coming from Krishna. Krishna is telling two beautiful commandments here. Like, the in the path of yoga, one is that the withdrawal has to happen. You shall withdraw yourself slowly, and you shall think about nothing else. Like, that is the commandment that is coming. And it's not easy. The manas can constantly drift away. As and when the mind drifts away, yato yato nischarati manaha chanchalam, tatastato niyamya etat atmanyeva vasham nayet. You shall bring it back to the self-control. You shall bring it back to the hriddesha as and when it wanders away. Right? So three very beautiful commandment kind of an instruction given by Krishna when it comes to the dhyana here. Right? So we see about five or so of such commandments in this. Now finally, once those rules are given, finally we are at a state where he explains that prashanta manas, sukam uttamam upeti, like in that state where we have completely gained that prashanta manas, that very tranquil kind of manas. That is the state where uttamam sukham, the supreme sukha, okay, which is shanta rajasam, which has completely calmed down the turbulence of this samsarika life. The life in general is very, very turbulent. There is sukha, dukkha, pleasure, pain. The dualities are abound, like in this rajogunatmaka samsara. That is completely calmed down. Shanta rajasam, sukham uttamam, the extremely superior sukha, and brahma bhutama kalmasham. Right? It is seated in the brahma state, like, akalmasham, without any kind of a taint, without any kind of a defect, akalmasham. That's the kind of a sukha that we can attain in that state of tranquility. finally he says, Yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmasha. Having gotten rid of all types of kalmasha, having gotten rid of all types of vices, sins and things like this. Sukhena Brahma Samsparsham Atyantam Sukhamashtati. He will continue to consume, he will continue to relish that happiness which is touched by the Brahma. That's what we saw last. And then a little more explanation about the Sthiti is what we will continue to hear now. We will now move on to Shloka number 29. There is a web link that Vijayji has pinned to the room. You click on that, we directly be taken to that particular shloka. So I will quickly read that. Hari Om. Om. Sarvabhutasthamaatmanam sarvabhutani chātmani ikshate yoga yuktātma sarvatra samadarshanaha. Sarvabhutasthamaatmanam sarvabhutani chātmani ikshate yoga yuktātma sarvatra samadarshanaha. So we will now split the word. We do the padacheda. Scroll down a little bit on the page. We see a section called padacheda. That's the split of the words, right? Sarva bhutastham atmanam sarva bhutani cha atmani ikshate yoga yukta atma sarvatra samadarshana. Right? This is the breakdown of the word. This is the split of all the words. When we unjumble these words and put them into a proper sentence format, we get to hear that in Anvaya, right? Yoga Yukta Atma, Sarvatra Samadarshanaha, Atmanam Sarvabhutastham Sarvabhutani cha Atmani Ikshate. Right? That extremely blissful state of Niruddha Yoga, right? The top state of yoga, the Samadhi state of the yoga. What happens in that? Why does the yogi experience that absolute bliss? Why is he freed of all possible sins? What is that pleasure which is Brahma Samsparsha pleasure, which is touched by the Brahma? I think that explanation comes. But this Anvaya, Yoga Yukta Atma, Sarvatra Samadarshanaha, Atmanam Sarva Bhutastham, Sarva Bhutani cha Atmani Ikshate. That equanimity to be absolutely blissful, the state is being explained. What does that Anvaya mean? We click on dictionary. When we click on dictionary, Yoga Yuktatma, that person who is completely Yoga Yukta, one who is completely engaged in yoga, the man whose self is in yoga, right? Sarvatra Samadarshanaha, being equal visioned everywhere, right? Sarvatra Samadarshanaha, or one who has equanimity all across, one who develops that equanimity all across. What is that equanimity? Which basically is Atmanam Sarvabhutastham Sarvabhutani cha Atmani. Basically, he finds the self, Atmanam, in Sarvabhutastham, in all beings. He can find his self in every being, and Sarvabhutani cha Atmani. And he sees all living beings in his own Atma, in his own self. Ikshate, he sees. Basically, this is the highest point of equanimity. I can see myself in everyone. I can see everyone in me. Right? When I can see everyone in me, and I can see me being in everyone, that Atma can also be Paramatma. Right? So basically, the one who finds every being in the Paramatma, and the Paramatma in every being. And that Atma can be Atma also, me also. When I see me in everyone, and when I see everyone in me, that is the absolute state of equanimity. Samadarshana. Now, Samadarshana is the reference that we can take from the 5th chapter, little while ago. In the same discourse, Krishna says that, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane Gavihastini, Shunichaiva Shvapakecha, Pandita Samadarshina. He says the Pandita, the well-learned people, the Buddhiman people, the intelligent people, are the ones who can see equanimity in different types of beings. Vidya Vinaya Sampanna kind of a person, the one who is actually attained the absolute Sattvika Subhava. Brahmani, the one who is in the path of attaining that Brahma, the Rajasika kind of a Subhava. Chandala, Shvapaka, the one who is a complete tamasika person, he can see them all in an equanimous state, without any upeksha, without any jealousy, without any doubt, without any ulterior motive, without any prejudice, all of these things. And then Shuni is the dog. Okay, Hasti is the elephant. Okay, and then the cow. Among the cow, among the elephant, among the dog, among the Brahmana, among the Brahma Vidya Sampanna, and among the Chandala. With all different types of people, we can be equanimous. We can be empathetic. We can be non-prejudicing. That's the Samadarshana. Samadarshana is not Samavartana. Samadarshana is different. Samavartana is different. I don't have to necessarily treat them all the same way, but I see that same Brahma inside all of them. I will treat them to what they are worth, right? That's different. But this is about equanimity, right? So this is the absolute equanimity. And that is possible when I can start looking at me in everyone and then everyone in me. That's the kind of an impression that we get, right? Now, let us see what Aurobindo says for this shloka, the Aurobindo interpretation. We come back to the main page. It says, the man who sees self in yoga, man whose self is in yoga, he sees the self in all beings and all beings in the self. He is equal visioned everywhere, Samadarshana, or equanimous everywhere, or empathetic everywhere. That's the kind of a thing. Right? See, these kind of things, some of the things that Krishna is quoting now are perhaps very similar to what we hear in multiple Upanishads and things like that. Like it's the same message that we get. Like, for example, some of us might be following this club called Jata Veda within Clubhouse. It's a common forum that we all access. Every Saturday there is an Ishavasya Upanishad thing that happens. I think we haven't come to that level. I think the discourse so far, today we will perhaps be looking at the third mantra or the fourth mantra within Ishavasya Upanishad. But within Ishavasya, there is one line, Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmanyevanu Pashyati Sarva Bhuteshu Chatmanam Tato Na Vijuksate. There is a line, one who can see the self in everyone and then everyone in the self. There is no jigupsa, there is no there is no ill feeling. That's the absolute empathy, right? That's exactly what Krishna is saying. Now, how to gain the sukha? Through empathy. How to gain empathy? I think he will explain that further. Right? We now move on to shloka number 30. Shloka number 30 reads like this. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvancha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvancha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. When we look at the Padacheda, the word split, individual word split, it says, Yo mam, yaha, actually not you, yaha mam pashyati sarvatra, sarvam cha mayi pashyati, tasya aham na pranashyami, saha cha me na pranashyati. When we unjumble it and put them into a proper sentence format, the Anvaya, section just above the Padacheda, is the Anvaya. Yaha sarvatra mam pashyati, sarvam cha mayi pashyati, tasya aham na pranashyami, saha cha me na pranashyati. Now, he explains how to develop that empathy. He explains in this shloka. And empathy leads to the happiness that we saw in the shloka prior to that. And that happiness, leads to that absolute samadhi state. Right? So it's all leading one to the other. Now he is explaining how to develop that empathy. We click on the dictionary to get the meaning of this anvaya. Yaha sarvatra mam pashyati, sarvam cha mayi pashyati, tasya aham na pranashyami, saha cha me na pranashyati. What does that mean? We click on dictionary. Hey Arjuna, yaha, the one who sarvatra mam pashyati, looks, sees me everywhere. And Krishna is speaking, right? He is the Bhagavan. The one who sees the Bhagavan in everything, everywhere. and Sarvam cha Mai Pashyati, and he sees everyone in Bhagavan. Right? The one who sees Bhagavan in everything and sees everything in Bhagavan. And this is a beautiful explanation, right? So the Bhagavan in everything is like, in the previous chapter, Nirdosham hi samam Brahma. Like, Bahya Sparshesh Saktatma Vindatyatmani Sukam. So in the previous chapter, we saw that, uh, you know, the Brahma, that Bhagavan is the clean, untainted Bhagavan that is there in everyone, right? And then in the 15th chapter also he says, Mamaivamsu Jivaroki Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. It's my small speck of creation is all living beings. Every living being is ultimately part of me. And then when we look into some of the concepts in the 4th chapter, we looked at these Vedokta Shruti, Vakyas, right? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. This everything is, what is the definition of Brahma? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. This everything is Brahma. So scientifically, if we have to arbitrarily assign a value, like, let X be so and so, let Brahma be everything put together that is graspable, that is seen and unseen, that all encompassing entity is Brahma. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. And that's the technical definition of Brahma. Brihatvat Brahma. The real big thing is Brahma, right? So the one who can see that Brahma in everyone, right? If 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 all encompassing thing is Brahma, then obviously it is Brahma in everything, right? If my entire body, physical body put together is part of me, then even my fingernails are me, my thumb is also me, every finger is me, every limb is me, my skin is me, my eyes are me, my ears are, so every individual part is also me. I am there in every living, I am there in every individual part, right? So similarly, Mam Pashyati Sarvatra, one who sees that Bhagavanta in everything and everything in the Bhagavanta, right? All my body parts are in me and I am in every of my body parts. It's very easy. We can look at it that way. So technically, physically, everyone is part of Brahma, and Brahma is in everyone, right? So the one who can see me in everything, and one who can see everything in me, right? Then tasya aham na pranashyami. Then I will never be lost for him. I will always be with him. Brahma samsparsha sukha, right? In the couple of shlokas earlier, it is all Brahmicity. Brahma, that sukha is Brahma samsparsha, because the one who can constantly see me in everything, including himself, and then he sees everyone, including himself, in me as part of me, I can never be lost for him, right? Tasya aham na pranachyami. Satame na pranachiti. And he will also never be lost for me. He will never be lost in me. He will be with me. I am with him, basically, right? And in that state, we will also develop absolute empathy, because it's not just me who is part of Brahma, everyone is part of Brahma. It is not just me in whom Brahma is. In everyone, it's the same Nirdosha Sama Brahma that is glowing inside all of us. Maybe the reflection is different, maybe the way, the intensity with which the Brahma, the style, the shape in which that Brahma reflects in each of us is different, because of the different vasanas, svabhavas, prakritika svabhavas that we all carry. But the true Brahma is the same Sama Brahma, Nirdosha Brahma inside all of us. And if somebody can see that Brahma inside all of us, and all of us inside that Brahma, that person can never be lost. Neither I will be lost for him, nor he will be lost in me. Right? I will be with him all along. And that is the definition of the Brahma Samsparsha Atyantika Sukha that we spoke of a couple of shlokas earlier. Right? Let's see what Aurobindo translation says. He who sees me everywhere and sees all in me, not all as me, right? All in me and me in everyone. To him I do not get lost, nor does he get lost in me. I will be with him all the time. Right? That's the quick definition. I think this again, adds very well with what we heard as that line from Ishavasya, right? Jastu Sarvani Bhutani, Atmanyevanu Pachyati. And as Atma can be Paramatma also. Because in the Upanishad, all along we just spoke about the Paramatma. Ishavasya Sarvam, Yatkinti Jagatyam Jagati. So, Tena Sakyena Bhunjita. So, we were speaking about the Paramatma there. So, that Atma Paramatma interchangeability is possible, right, when we look at these slokas. Nonetheless, then finally he concludes. He concludes the final discourse of the 6th chapter, right? The final sloka number 32. Because after this we hear another question from Arjuna, right? So it's going to be a slightly different discourse. We will see the last sloka for this chapter now. Atmopamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. Atmopamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yo Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. The padacheda Atma upamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yaha Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sahayogi paramaha mataha. When we unjumble them, put them into the prose order, Hey Arjuna, sukham va yadi va dukkham yaha atma upamyena sarvatra samam pashyati sahayogi paramaha mataha. Right? What does that mean? Hey Arjuna, oh Arjuna. Now again, Arjuna as a word is very beautiful for this context because Arjayati iti Arjuna, the one who Jnana Arjuna, right? Jnana Arjuna, basically the one who can give the knowledge nicely or even accept the knowledge nicely. So all the knowledge that has been given so far by Sri Krishna is of no use if he doesn't have the capacity to assimilate them all. So Arjuna, in that sense, is a very nice name. Hey Arjuna, oh Arjuna, dukkham va yadiva sukham, be it grieving time or a happy thing, happy state or a grieving state, happy thing or a grieving thing. Okay, yaha, the one who atma upamyena, with the feeling of the self, just like how you treat your own self, atma upamyena basically means just like how you treat yourself, sarvatra samam pashyati, one who sees everything in equanimity, with equality. Sahayogi paramaha mataha. That yogi is supreme for me. Is my opinion. Mataha, in my opinion. In my opinion, that yogi is supreme. The one who can look at everything like his own self. One who desires for good things for everyone, just like how he would desire for himself. Right? That kind of a yogi is a supreme yogi. The Samadarshana. He finally concludes. Right? If we have to quickly reflect upon why this Samadarshana is needed. Right? At one point in this chapter, he says, Suhrun Mitra, Ari, Udasina, Madhyastha, Dveshya, Bandushu, with people who are kind-hearted, who are friendly, who are enemy type, who are indifferent, who are the middlemen, who are the good people, who are the absolute sinners, who are the relatives. There are different types of people that are assembled in this war. Ultimately, this is a Upadesha being given in the middle of the battlefield. And Arjuna is fighting with people who on another day would have been his brothers, his enemies, his friends, his relatives, people who are close to his heart, people who are indifferent to him, people do good to him when he is good to them, people do bad to him when he is bad, mercenaries. Right? There are different types of people that he has to deal with. And all these types of people have assembled in this war. Some in his side, some on the enemy side. What does he have to do? Does he have to look at what those people are, or does he have to carry out his task, which is fight the enemy? An enemy is not by person. Enemy is anybody who incidentally is part of the enemy army, right? Which is the Kaurava army. He has to attain that Atmopamya, right? Atmopamya is like, do the duty without any kind of an additional thing. And all of these things started because he had special attachment looking at Bhishma Drona, his favorite grandfather, grandsire, Bhishmacharya, and his favorite teacher, right, Dronacharya. Looking at them, he was so the Samadarshana, this Atmopamya kind of a state, is essential for Arjuna to become a yogi, right? And then, if somebody has to execute his kartavya, his dharma, without without any kind of a flinching kind of an attitude, with an unflinching kind of an attitude. When we look at the last 5, 6 chapters, right? The first chapter is the Arjuna Vishada Yoga, where the problem has been defined as a yoga. Problem is very nicely defined, a capable problem. Then we come to the Sankhya Yoga, the capability of analysis. Sankhya is Sankhya, the ability, the capability to analyze. You, the ultimate form of analysis we saw is where a person can keep himself away from his body. Like, my pain in the body is different to what I am. The pain in the body is maybe long inflicting on the body, but for me, it's only temporary. Right? I would have forgotten the pain very soon. Right? So we're not permanently attached to the pain. So the Sankhya Yoga is that ability to analyze, detach yourself, keep an arm's distance away from the reality, and look at things from a very, very dispassionate point of view. Right? That's all about the Sankhya. And then he spoke about the Karma Yoga, industrious, assiduity, like constantly working all the time. And in that process, we will do the Yajnartha Karma. In that process, we do Bhagavad Karya. In that process, we will realize our own self. Like, many things will happen in the process, but industrious, one who can be extremely dispassionately analytical, one who can be industrious with great amount of assiduity. Then the Jnana Karma Sannyasa, Jnana, the awareness, one who can develop absolute awareness, awareness to know what can go wrong, awareness to know what to do right all the time, right? That awareness, and one who can be selfless, team spirited. Sannyasa, not necessarily being attached to the fruits of the action. Basically means I don't have any selfish motives, right? Which means I'm playing selflessly, which means I'm more of a team player. Right? The team can be my society, team can be my family, team can be my country, team can be my world. Right? Need not be my small team within my organization that I work to earn my salary. Right? The team can be the broader scheme of things. Right? Less than me, less of me, and more of me. That's exactly what sannyasa is. That we don't do anything for the sake of our personal sense gratification. We do it for the greater good. And then atmopamya, like the sanyama, the atma sanyama, the dhyana, the state of tranquility, the state of stoic behavior, the state of absolute supreme empathy towards all living beings. Absolutely tranquil. When we look at these 5, 6 qualities, well-defined problem, analytical capability, industry capability, awareness capability, selflessness capability, and a capable, tranquil person. These 6 things together perhaps will help us understand what it takes to become a Kartavya Sadhaka, right? One of the first things that he spoke about was that, Anarya Jushta, Aswargya Akirtikara, Arjuna. So Arya Jushta is basically one who can constantly keep on delivering his work, right? Now he says the one who can constantly keep on doing his work, okay, Sayogi, Paramahamata is a supreme person, because Arjuna had a question. Tell me what is good for me. Okay, Yachreya Etayorekam Tamme Bruhi Sunishitam. The supreme thing for you is to become a yogi. Yogi who does Samadarshana Sarvatra all along, equanimity. Just like how you would treat yourself. Atma Upamyena. Whether it is dukkha, whether it is sukha, you don't bother about it. They are all temporal experiences, you keep on going. Right? A quick summary of the 6 chapters can be seen here. But Arjuna is not done. He will have questions. Before looking at Arjuna's question, let's quickly read out the Aurobindo interpretation of this particular shloka, shloka number 32. He, O Arjuna, who sees with equanimity or equality everything in the image of the self, okay, just like how he treats himself, Atma Upamyena, whether it be grief or it be happy, to him I hold to be the supreme yogi. Right? So he is the ultimate. So what is good for me? Be a yogi, indirectly telling Arjuna. But Arjuna has a question. With that, we move on to shloka number 33. Arjuna Uvacha. योऽयं योगस्त्वया प्रोक्तः साम्येन मधुसूदन एतस्याहं न पश्यामि चञ्चलत्वात् स्थितिं स्थिराम् योऽयं योगस्त्वया प्रोक्तः साम्येन मधुसूदन एतस्याहं न पश्यामि चञ्चलत्वात् स्थितिं स्थिराम् पदच्छेद the word split अर्जुनः उवाच यः अयं योगः त्वया प्रोक्तः साम्येन मधुसूदन एतस्य अहं न पश्यामि चञ्चलत्वात् स्थितिं स्थिराम् when we unjumble it we get the anvaya right Arjuna spoke Arjuna uvacha he madhusudana yaha ayam yogaha tvaya samyena proktah chanchalatvat etasya stiram sthitim aham na pashyami Arjuna has a question now. Arjuna has a concern. He is now allaying that concern to Krishna. He says, hey Madhusudana, O Krishna, yaha ayam yogaha, yaha ayam yogaha, samyena yogaha, tvaya samyena proktah. This yoga that you spoke with equanimity, with the nature of equality, chanchalatva, because of restlessness, etasya stiram, the stability of this stitin, the situation, the foundation, etasya stiram stitin, the stable situation of this, the stable foundation of this yoga, aham na pashyami, I do not see. Basically, Arjuna is saying, oh Madhusudana, because of the restlessness, okay, whatever yoga that you just described, okay, the of equanimity, with the help of equanimity, through equanimity, whatever yoga that you spoke to me so far, because of the restlessness, owing to the restlessness, I don't see this being very stably founded. I don't see this being very stably seated. Right? I don't see the stability of this. Okay, because Atma Pamyana, because Manas, there is a Manas, right? I think Arjuna is telling, hey Krishna, oh Madhusudana, I don't see the stability of this yoga, whatever yoga you spoke of equanimity. I don't see the stability of this owing to the restlessness. Right? Aurobindo interpretation, it says, Arjuna Uvacha, this yoga of the nature of equality which has been described by you, O Madhusudana, I see no stable foundation for it owing to the restlessness. Very simple one. Why? I think he explains that. The next shloka. Right? The next shloka, Arjuna continues to say, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramati balavadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. The padacheda, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramati balavadridham tasya aham nigraham manye vayoho iva sudushkaram. When we put the anvaya, unjumble, hey Krishna, hi manaha chanchalam pramati dridam balavat tasya nigraham vayoho iva sudushkaram aham manye. Right? This is very interesting. This shloka is very interesting. What it says, hey Krishna, oh Krishna. Now Krishna is again a very, very relevant sambodhana, right? There are different ways in which we can understand the word Krishna. Karshayati. Karshayati is somebody who does the cultivating, right? Krishna does the cultivating of the entire, there is a definition that comes, in the Bhagavata, yato karshasi devesha niyamya sakalam jagat. So the one who does the cultivation of this entire jagat through his own niyamya, through his own means. Or, bhakta jana papa vi dosha karshanat Krishna. The one who attracts, akarshanath Krishna, akarshati, both cultivation, even cultivation, there is some kind of an attraction that is happening. So, karshana, sankarshana, karshana is also akarshana, right? So, bhakta jana papadi akarshanath or dosha karshanat, he attracts the doshas of all the people, all his bhaktas. Now, Arjuna is his bhakta, bhaktos in his sakaki. Krishna only said that You are my friend, you are my friend, bhakta. Therefore, I am telling you all of this. So, whatever is the mistake of Arjuna, whatever is the dosha of Arjuna, he will attract it and take it with him. That's one of the beautiful ways of looking at it, right? With Krishna, hey Krishna, the one who attracts, the one who cultivates. Both can be appropriate for Krishna. He manaha chanchalam. Indeed, the mind is restless, right? Now, Arjuna is telling, he manaha chanchalam, okay? Pramathi dridham, okay? Pramathi, turbulently, vehemently, dridham, strong, balavat, unconquerable, okay? Balavat, tasya nigraham, the control of that, vayoho iva, like the wind, like the vayu, sudushkaram, is very difficult. Iti aham manye, this is my belief. This is what I feel. Arjuna is telling, oh Krishna, aham manye, I think the mana is extremely restless. And pramathi dridham, balavat tasya nigraham, dridham balavat, it's very strong, it is very firm, and it is very turbulent, pramathi. Vayoho iva sudushkaram, tasya nigraham, vayoho iva sudushkaram. The controlling of the mind is very difficult, just like how wind is. It's difficult to control the wind also, right? We can take the sails in a boat and try to control a little bit, but when the wind becomes extremely turbulent, the sails will be completely blown away. Right? There is only limited way in which we can control the wind. And wind control, mind control. Whenever we see, right, whenever we talk about mind control, the wind control is de facto opinion that we draw. Like for example, whenever somebody teaches mind control, the first thing that they all talk about is pranayama. Pranayama is the wind control. The wind control leads us to the mind control. But also look at the kind of examples that he is quoting, Arjuna. This is exactly giving back Krishna his own words. Like Krishna is the one who said in the second chapter, somewhere he says, Indriyani pramatha, the turbulent, the vehement nature, is owing to the fact that the mind can be snatched away by the very turbulent senses. The senses are extreme turbulent. Indriyani pramatini haranti prasabham manaha. That's what Krishna has. So mind can be restless. Mind can be turbulently snatched away by the senses. Right? And it's Krishna who gives the same simile, example of Vayu. Like, Indriyana vicharatam yanmano vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam Vayur navam iva ambhasi. It's Krishna who gave the example of like Vayu, in the ocean, snatches away the boat which is not properly, firmed up with an anchor or a rope. Mind is like that. Mind will be snatched away. So the example of Vayu, the expression of Pramatha, the vehement nature or the turbulent nature, is given by Krishna. Now Arjuna is putting it back to Krishna. Oh Krishna, like looking at the 33rd sloka and the 34th sloka, the 33rd sloka he's telling, oh Krishna, whatever this samyena, whatever this with the help of equanimity, that yoga that you spoke of, okay, I don't see it to be very stable because of the restlessness. And restlessness is because the mind is restless. The mind is restless and it is extremely turbulent, firm, and strong. And controlling the mind is very similar to controlling the wind. It's very difficult. This is what I see. Because all the tranquility, samadarshana, samabhava, sarvabhuta samatmanam, sarvabhutani chatmani, all of that is fine, good to hear. But it is not easy to achieve that, Krishna. What to do? Right? Very simple. Because mind is extremely problematic. Krishna has answered that, whenever the mind wanders away, bring it back. Atmanyeva vasham nayet. Yato yato nischarati manaha chanchalamathiram tatastato niyamya etat atmanyeva vasham nayet is something that Krishna has spoken. But now Arjuna is posing a different question. Right? I see it very difficult to bring it back because it's a loop, right? Its manas itself is the vairi of ourselves. Uddhared atmanatmanam, atmaiva hyatmano bandhu, atmaiva ripuhu atmanah. So the mind, our own self are our own enemies and our own friends. Whichever way. It's all about the mind control. Give me one moment. It's all about the mind control. Let's see what Aurobindo translation says for this one. Aurobindo translation says, restless indeed is the mind, O Krishna. It is vehement, turbulent, strong and unconquerable, firm and strong, dridha and balavat. I deem it as hard to control as controlling the wind. Very simple. What does now Krishna answer? Now we are led into the 8th round of Bhagavad-Gita. Right? This is the 8th round. The previous round, we had 7 rounds of Bhagavan Uvacha completed. This is the 8th time the Bhagavan Uvacha comes. Right? 3 rounds of Bhagavan Uvacha in the 2nd chapter, 2 rounds of Bhagavan Uvacha in the 3rd chapter and the 4th chapter a little bit, and 1 round in the 2nd part of the 4th chapter. Right? 6 there. And in between chapters 5 and 6, we completed 1 more round. So that's the 7th round. Now we are into the 2nd Bhagavan Uvacha within the 6th chapter. So that makes it the 8th round of Bhagavad-Gita. Each round of Bhagavad-Gita is a full Gita. That's why we say Gitas, Upanishads. Many Gitas within this Bhagavad-Gita. Right? There are many Gitas. So this is the 8th Gita or 8th round of Gita, whichever way. But each round of Gita will have the complete message of the Bhagavad-Gita for somebody who wants to look into it very deeply, very properly. I think each round of Bhagavad-Gita will carry the complete meaning of the Bhagavad-Gita. Let's see what this sloka says. Sloka number 35. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asanshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate. Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate. The Padacheda says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Manaha Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate. Right? This is the Padacheda. Now we will do the Anvaya. When we put them back into the proper sentence, it says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, He Mahabaho, Asamshayam Manaha Chalam, Durnigraham, Tu He Kaunteya, Abhyasena, Vairagyena cha Grihyate. Very simple answer. Krishna is telling, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So, Bhagavan is also a very nice word, right? Bhaga is a part. To whom? The one who deserves a part of us to be offered. Bhagavan Vacha. Hey Mahabahu, very beautiful. Wherever Krishna has to reinstall a sense of responsibility back on Arjuna, that's when he uses the word Mahabahu. Because that's the mighty arm. Right? Idiomatically speaking, the mighty arm is somebody who can shoulder great responsibility. That's the Mahabahu. Bahu is literally the shoulder. Right? Asamshayam, indeed, without doubt. Okay, Manaha Chalam. Mana is restless. Now look at the word, right? There Arjuna uses the word Chanchala, but when Krishna brings the same expression, he makes it Chala. You don't have to bring in Utpreksha, say Chanchala. It's Chala. Manaha Chalam. Durnigraham, difficult to restrain. But He Kaunteya, O Kunti Putra, O Arjuna, Abhyasena Vairagyena cha, by constant practice and by non-attachment, Grihyate, can be controlled. He says, O Arjuna, you are right. Mind is indeed, without doubt, asamshayam, without doubt, mind is restless. Okay, and it is difficult to control. But with constant practice, abhyasa, and with regular vairakta, with constant, present, nitya vairagya, with constant virakta, non-attachment, it is possible to be controlled. It is possible to control the mind. Right? Let's see what Aurobindo translation says. It says, "Oh, the blessed Lord said, Without doubt, O mighty armed Arjuna, the mighty armed is more idiomatic. Mahabahu, somebody who can bear a lot of responsibility, right? O mighty armed, O broad-shouldered Arjuna, the mind is restless and very difficult to restrain. But O Kaunteya, it may be controlled by constant practice and non-attachment. Right? So, see, this is perhaps very telling because Abhyasa Vairagya. When we look at the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, right? In the Samadhi Pada itself, the explanation comes to attain yoga, to do the Chitta Vritti Nirodha, to purify ourselves and achieve Yogyata, to become capable people. One of the first rules is Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannirodha. The Chitta Vritti Nirodha is possible, Tat Nirodha, that Chitta Vritti Nirodha is possible only through Abhyasa Vairagabhyam, only through Abhyasa and the Vairagya. Okay, these are the only two ways of achieving the yoga. Very simply put, this is where these two shlokas of Bhagavan Uvacha are perhaps very extremely powerful because this is complete Bhagavad-Gita. All that is to be known will be known with just these two shlokas. Right? This is complete yoga. For yoga, all that is needed is Abhyasa and Vairagya. And be responsible. Okay, understand the mana. Mana is a spoil sport. It is indeed, without doubt, a very, very chala kind of a thing, and difficult to control. Know that, be aware of that. But get into constant practice, abhyasa, and be non-attached. And attachment, right? Whenever we speak about attachment, sangha, sangam tyaktva. No, parapekshaya sangha, give up attachment to the fruits. Karmani, kartrutve sangha, attachment to the doership. Right? Akarmani sangha, attachment to inaction. Hetutve, I am the cause. No, attachment to the causation, causal belief. No, ahankara, give up all of these things. Right? Ahankara, mamakara, give up. So attachment, so vairagya, virakta is very, very important. I mean, when we look into this concept very deeply, right, just to get a proportion of this, it's a common saying, right? It's, no surgeon will ever operate on his own body. See, to eliminate the pain, the anesthesia could have taken away the pain. He's not under any pain. But no surgeon can ever operate himself. Forget himself. A surgeon finds it difficult to operate his own near and dear ones also. Virakta, that vairagya, the attachment is very difficult. Raga is always there. Attachment is always there. So when we look into this sloka deeply, I think when we contemplate on this more and more deeply, I think there are many things that we can realize. Manaha durnigraham asamshayam chalam manaha durnigraham. But to abhyasena vairagyena krisyate. It can be controlled through constant practice and vairagya with sense of detachment. Right? With that, we move on to the next shloka. Click on the next on the top of the screen. Asanyatatmana yogo dushprapa iti me matihi vashyatmana tu yatata shakyo va tumupayataha. Asanyatatmana yogo dushprapa iti me matihi vashyatmana tu yatata shakyo avaptum upayataha. A very important shloka this is. We'll see the Padacheda first. Asanyata atmana yogaha dushprapaha iti me matihi. Vashya atmana tu yatata shakyaha avaptum upayataha. When we put them into the sentence format, asanyata atmana yogaha dushprapaha. Yatata vashyatmana tu upayataha avaptum shakyaha iti me matihi. What Arjuna starts with a question which says, this is what I feel. Now, Krishna replies back saying that this is what I feel. It's a nice conversation happening between brothers, right? These are two cousin brothers, right? So, the cousins are having a nice, call it a soft banter, but Arjuna says, this is my opinion, Krishna, what do you think? Krishna answers, this is my opinion, Arjuna, take it. Right? So, let's see what this means when we click on dictionary. Asanyata atmana yogaha dushprapaha. For a non-controlled person, yoga is difficult. Asanyata Atmana, for a person who is not self-controlled, yoga dushprapaha. Yoga becomes difficult. Yoga is what? Capability. Yogya, one that can make us yogya is yoga. It is the way out. It's the upaya itself. But yatata vashya atmana, for a person who is constantly working hard, striving, yatata vashya atmana, and has got complete self-control too. But upayataha avaptum, there is a proper way to attain that. Shakyaha, possible, is possible. Iti me mati. This is my opinion. This is my, thought. This is my view. Iti me matihi. So Krishna is telling, oh Arjuna, for an uncontrolled person who cannot control himself, yoga is difficult. But if you can control yourself and you can constantly, yatata, again very important, because that is where that, nishchayena yoktavyaha, na kinchidapi chintayet, yatata, constant striving, and vashyatmana, with complete control. Upayataha avaptum shakyaha. It is possible to find a way to attain that yoga. Yoga itself is the way. It's possible to find a way to that way. It's possible to find a way. Or here he's also revealing the definition. Yoga, when we look at the big books like Amara Kosha, Kalpadrumas, and things like that, one of the telling definitions of yoga, I mean, we see communion with self and the Bhagavan. For some people, it doesn't make sense. But from a adibhautika sense, from a material plane, the simplest way to understand yoga is upaya, way out, capability, right? Makes sense. And that supreme communion through constant material yoga, we will achieve the supreme yoga also. And material yoga need not be a very selfish yoga, right? Material yoga is being in a material plane, being selfless, being non-attached to the results. Those are the kind of things that will help us get closer and closer to the Bhagavan, which is the Atma Paramatma Sanyama, or Sanyoga, that communion of Atma and the Paramatma. But many people tend to think yoga to be that, without knowing how to attain that. I think the best way to achieve that is when we understand yoga to be upaya from the material plane. Do things slowly by slowly, staying in the material plane, because we are in the material plane. We are not away from the material plane. Keep on doing work, with virakta, with non-attachment, with yatna, with abhyasa, constant practice. I think that's the best way. Then we can some way realize that paramatmika sattva also, right? Because Krishna has spoken about that, kalena atmani vindati, nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitramiha vidyate, tat swayam yoga samsiddha, that paramatma jnana, the realization of the paramatma tattva, tat swayam yoga samsiddha. For a yoga samsiddhi kind of a person, kalena atmani vidyate, he will find it within himself. And yoga samsiddha is karmaneva hi samsiddhi masita janakadaya. It is through work, it is through action alone people stay in the path of yoga samsiddhi. Right? It is through constant action. So material plane can never be avoided, at least looking at what Gita Acharya is telling constantly. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation has for this shloka. It says, by one who is not self-controlled, the yoga is difficult to attain. But by the self-controlled person, it is attainable by properly directed efforts. Right? So when we look at these two shlokas in conjunction, Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam. Okay, definitely, without doubt, the manas is difficult to control. It is very restless. But Abhyasena Kaunteya Vairagyena Grihati. It can be controlled, O Kaunteya, through Abhyasa and Vairagya. And for a non-person who doesn't have control over himself, for him it is difficult. But for a person who can control himself and constantly stay in the strife, constantly stay in the effort, he will be able to find a way. Right? Very deeply. When we look at these two shlokas, contemplate them again and again and again, this is the entire Bhagavad-Gita. We don't have to look beyond. Very simplistically, he has answered how exactly to attain whatever we have to attain. A simple message. But Arjuna is still not done. Okay, very beautiful. Now, when we look at these sections of Arjuna, in all the previous questions of Arjuna, what is good for me is a constant theme. Yena shreyo hamapmayam. No? Yachreyasya nishchitam bruhi tanme. Okay, tell me what is Shreyaskara, what is good for me, what is higher thing for me, what is greater thing for me. Now that is stopped. Arjuna doesn't have that question at all. He understands, okay, this Atmopamya Yoga is absolutely the greatest, but it is difficult to attain. That's the first question. Now the second question. Right? We move on to shloka number 37. Arjuna Uvacha. Ayati Shraddhayopeto Yoga Chalita Manasaha Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati. Ayati Shraddhayopetaha Yoga Chalita Manasaha Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati. Very intelligent question. Right? Many of us have these kind of questions. Right? And Arjuna has spoken for many of us. What does that mean? First we'll see the Padacheda. Padacheda says, Arjuna Uvacha, Ayatihi Shraddhaya Upetaha Yogat Charita Manasa Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati. The word Anvaya, the prose order for this, Arjuna Uvacha, hey Krishna, again Krishna, right? Hey Krishna, Shraddhaya Upetaha Ayatihi Yogat Charita Manasa Yoga Samsiddhim Aprapya Kam Gatim Gacchati. There is a question coming. What does that mean? When we click on dictionary, hey Krishna, oh Krishna, Shraddhaya Upetaha, even with endowed with deep Shraddha. See, Shraddha is not just faith, trust, belief. No, all of these things are entwined in it. Shraddha doesn't have another Samanarthaka pada, even in Samskrita. Samskrita normally, for many, many words, there are many synonyms. But for Shraddha, there is no second word. It's a loaded word. Faith, trust, belief. Many things are subservience. A lot of things come in. Surrender. Shraddha. Shraddha is that belief. Like when we go to the doctor, we really don't know what the disease is. We really don't know what the chemical composition of the pill is. And there are people who have the belief, have the trust, have the faith in the system and follow it. Right? And this happens with many, many streams. Like when we study mathematics also, we have to many a times just believe. Like we need to have the faith. Okay, at one point in time I will have the realization of the full differential calculus. Laplace series, Fourier transformation. Some of these complicated mathematical equations when we see. At the beginning, we all take to it with a lot of faith, a lot of belief, a lot of trust. It's a combined, loaded word. Shraddha is not just faith, not just belief, not just trust. It's a combination of multiple things. We know it's going to happen. So it will happen. So that's exactly the same. Because see, this is all hand-me-down knowledge given to us from the ancestry, right? Hereditary. And those people, our ancestors, haven't really thought of bad for us. They have codified good amount of science to it. This is called Yoga Shastra for a reason. And for 5,000 years, people after people have benefited from this. So when we take to this Yoga Shastra, the path of yoga, people need to be endowed with Shraddha. So Krishna, Shraddhaya Upetaha, even with endowed with Shraddha, Ayatihi is incomplete yati. Okay, Ayatihi. Now, Ayatihi says one who cannot control himself, but Yati is basically effort. Yatna is effort. We can say incomplete effort. Okay, because of incomplete effort, which is the Ayati. Ayati is one who doesn't have the complete effort, not necessarily lack of control. It could be just be that I don't have enough time to practice how much I need to practice. I am in the path of becoming an amazing cricketer. Suddenly I get heart attack. I can't help it. Like Ayati, the incomplete effort. It could be because of lack of control. It could be because of lack of ayu. Right? It could be anything. Ayati, the literal meaning should be that incomplete effort. Shraddhaya upetaha ayatihi yogat chalita manasaha. One whose mind has then wandered away from the yoga. One who's moved away from the yoga. Yoga samsiddhim aprapya. Having failed to attain the yogyata. Yoga samsiddhi is success in yoga. Having failed to accomplish siddhi is success. Right? Having failed, siddhi, as again, one more samanarthaka pada for siddha is yogya. Lakshmi, siddhi, yogya, they're all the same. Okay, so having failed to attain success in his path of yoga. Yoga Charita Manasaha, having his mind distance away from yoga because of ayati, because of incompleteness of the task. Even though Shraddhaya Upetaha, even though endowed with faith, right? Yoga samsiddhim aprapya, having failed to attain the success in yoga, kam gatim gachati, where does he go? What course, what path should he take? See, this is very important, right? Karma samsiddhi, yoga samsiddhi, karma siddhi, yoga siddhi, right? There are, in yoga siddhi, we know for the fact that, when, like for example, when I push my daughter for sports practice, practice badminton thoroughly, practice music thoroughly, I'm pushing her because at one point in time she will realize a new skill in herself, right? At one point in time she will acquire a new talent, and it's not easy. She had to overcome a lot of vasanas of having to sleep a little longer, vasanas of unable to read the notes or the musical notes. Things, there are many tendencies that we have to overcome, right? And there are people who get immediate pleasures, like the same day-to-day pleasure. Like for example, if somebody is practicing violin, he will have to practice to get the sound right, one string sound right. Forget about the notes, just to avoid getting multiple strings, hitting the bow together. That itself takes years of practice. Holding the violin in the single hand, but still they get it. It's one of the most difficult instruments to begin with. Unlike, say, something like a guitar, or a piano, where you press this key, you get this note, right? It's very easy at the beginner level. Of course, every instrument has its own difficulty. Every talent, every skill is difficult, no doubt. We need abhyasa, we need vairagya for everything. But what happens is the constant question that lures us away is the karma siddhi and yoga siddhi. Yoga siddhi is getting that capability developed. Karma siddhi is fruit of the action. Like instead of doing that violin, if I do some DJ activity, taking the keyboard, downloading some pre-existing file, I will do mix and match. Immediately I have some music created. Right? There are softwares available today where I can produce music without really learning music. And there are some people who really want to take the long haul and take up the difficult path. So there is always this constant duel, constant fight happening between, do I seek yoga siddhi or karma siddhi? Yoga siddhi is gaining the capability, or karma siddhi where I get a results of the action immediately. Like instead of going the couch to 5K kind of a run, I want to get fit, I want to get a girlfriend. I will take some other karma siddhi. Like I will get into some. There are this bariatric surgeries that happen, right? They suddenly remove the fat from your body and make you look slim. Or some people wear the tummy belt instead of yoga siddhi, instead of gaining capability. They wait. At least on the momentary phase, I can get the results. So now Krishna has been advocating Arjuna to stay away from the karma siddhi. Bhogaishwariya, prasakta, do away from attachment to the karma. Go for yogyata, go for the long haul. That's the yoga siddhi, right? So now you are putting me to the path of yoga, and in the path of yoga siddhi, I will not acquire full yoga because my mind is chanchala. That's what he started off with. Of course, I will listen to you. I will have full abhyasa. I will have full vairagya. But there is no guarantee I will attain the yoga siddhi currently, right? I can become ayati. Even if I have complete shraddha, I can become ayati. Where do I go? Right? Where do I go if I don't achieve the success of yoga completely? If I don't achieve the capability completely, where do I go? Right? That's the question from Arjuna. So Aurobindo interpretation says, Arjuna said, O Krishna, he who takes up yoga with faith also but cannot complete the task, control himself, I think becomes a little one-sided opinion, but cannot complete the task with the mind wandering away from yoga, failing to attain the success in yoga. Some siddhi is not necessarily perfection, but success, the way it is defined, right? What is his end? What is his alternative path? Where does he go, O Krishna? Right? Because it's difficult to attain yoga siddhi. Sanishchayena yoktavyaha. That's what we heard, right? You have to be very determined. But it's difficult. Let's hear more from Arjuna. What does he say? We'll move on to shloka number 38. Shloka number 38 reads, Kachinno bhaya vibhrashtaschinna bhramiva nashyati Apratishto Mahabaho Vimodo Brahmana Pati Kachinno Bhaya Vibrastas Chinna Brahmivanashati Apratishto Mahabaho Vimudho Brahmana Pati. The Padacheda Kachit na Ubhaya Vibrashtaha Chinna Abhram Ivanashyati Apratishtaha Mahabaho Vimudaha Brahmana Pati. When we unjumble them, the Anvaya sounds like a sentence, right? So Anvaya reads, Hey Mahabaho. Krishna calls Arjuna Mahabaho. Right? Earlier, Krishna was calling Arjuna as Mahabaho. Right? Now, Arjuna is calling Krishna as Mahabaho. Krishna says, Asanshayam Mahabaho in sloka number 35. Now, Krishna is being called as Mahabaho by Arjuna. And Mahabaho is very important because he is the one who carries the entire Jagat in his shoulders. Mahabaho. Right? Not just great responsibilities. He is the one who carries the entire Jagat. He Mahabaho. Brahmanaha pati vimudaha apratishtaha chinna abhram iva ubhaya vibrashtaha kachitna nashyati. Okay, what does that mean? We click on dictionary. Hey Mahabaho, oh great Krishna who carries the entire shoulder on your bahu. Bahu bahu rupadam. We hear that in the 11th chapter has some beautiful expressions about why Mahabahu. Right? We'll come to that later. But yeah, hey Mahabaho to Krishna. Brahmanaha pati vimudaha. The one who is bewildered in the path of this Parabrahma, the Yoga Samsiddhi. Okay, one who becomes bewildered in the path of Brahma. Apratishtaha. Okay, not completely stationed. Apratishtaha. No, not completely founded in that Brahmanapati. The bewildered, who is unstable, unsteadfast, Chinna Abhram Iva, like a scattered cloud. Ubhaya Brashtaha, Ubhaya Vibrashtaha. Okay, failing from both. What is the both? I think the both here is the Karma Siddhi and the Yoga Siddhi. Kachitna Nashyati, does he not perish? Whether does he not perish? What Arjuna is telling very, very valid questions, right? I mean, see, even in our, like for example, in a very toned down manner, when we have to look at an example in the corporate world, in our offices, when we start our career, we often meet some mentors, right? And many a times we are sitting the crossroads of a career decision, whether to do this or do that. There are easy ways, like for example, some people say, take up, I mean, you might have done PhD, but take up a job in an IT company, like in a Western company. Because Western companies are, when they come to set up shops in India, it's a labor cost arbitrage that is primarily determining the worth of the salary, right? Cheap labor. We are all cheap labor for what little tiny things they want to do. Right? There are many pharma companies that want to set up shops in India. There are many investment banking companies that they want to set up shops in India. And we might have achieved some kind of a skill in, say, some of these, advanced technologies like, AI and things like that. Right? And they need us. Right? Now, many times we are in the crossroads, whether to take that up or take up further studies and become a PhD, take up my PhD path and do further study in places like ISRO, IISc and things like that. Right? On one side, one is a very long haul, taking up the further studies in places like IIScs, ISROs will be a long haul. It's not easy. It's going to be extremely difficult. And we really don't know whether we're going to achieve something significant or not. See, today it's easy to get the doctorate. The doctor title is easy, but do we really accomplish something of note? Very few people achieve that, right? So there is no guarantee. On the other hand, Karma Siddhi, I have the necessary capabilities. I can draw lakhs of rupees. I can attain the Karma Siddhi. So the difference in Karma Siddhi is that, in Karma Siddhi, you have an immediate result shown to you. In Yoga Siddhi, you launch yourself for a long haul. It's a very long path. Whether something's going to happen in this current birth, you don't know. I may be completely endowed with Shraddha and take up to that thesis, the doctorate and things like that, but I might not achieve it because, the effort is not sufficient in the current lifetime to achieve what I really want to achieve. That doesn't take away anything less of my Shraddha and things like that, right? So I might have achieved, but not necessarily I have lost my self-control. But just my lifespan was not sufficient. So Arjuna is posing that question, oh Mahabaho, because Mahabaho is because he is a responsible person. Now speak responsibly. We are all dependent on you. I am completely dependent on you, oh Krishna. Like no, Brahmanapati Vimudaha Apratishtaha, the one who is bewildered from the path of Brahman, the supreme Parabrahma. See, all the good things are part of the Parabrahma. All yoga samsiddhis are the part of the Parabrahma. Apratishtaha, one who is not Pratishtaha in that, the path. Chinna Abhramiva, like a scattered cloud. Scattered cloud, see, clouds, they need to constantly integrate, and become bigger masses. Right? They can't scatter. Scattered cloud means they neither come to this big cloud or nor that big cloud. A cloud, a ball of hot air in the sky, has to be part of a bigger cloud for it to eventually, trickle down as raindrops. Like if it keeps on getting scattered from one big cloud to the other big cloud, it just dissipates into thin air. Its existence is as good as non-existent. Okay, so he's asking, Ubhaya Brashtaha, the one who's lost both the paths of Karma Siddhi and the Yoga Siddhi, Chinna Abhramiva, like a scattered cloud, Kachit na Nashyati, does he not perish? Does he not become completely wasteful? Is the question. Right? Very beautiful question from Arjuna. Okay, I mean, you set me out to the path of yoga. Now, in the path of yoga, it's difficult. Okay, Manas is restless and it's a long haul. And even with Shraddha, I will not be able to achieve it. Where do I go? Okay, and having been taken away from the Brahmanapati, having been not attached to the Brahmanapati, just like a scattered cloud, will that person not be completely perished? Like, will that not be useless from both the paths, both the paths of Karma Siddhi and the Yoga Siddhi? Right? So, what does it say? Aurobindo interpretation. Oh Krishna, oh Mahabaho, does he not lose both this life and the Brahmic consciousness? Okay, Brahmanapati is the big path. Brahma is Brihatvat Brahma. But again, interpretations can vary. This life and the Brahmic, I think we are looking at two different lives. That Brahmistiti, Brahmapati can be in my current life. It's the end goal. Okay, to which it aspires, and failing from both, perish like a dissolving cloud. Okay. Chinna Abhram Iva. Broken cloud. Like. Okay, I think it's a very beautiful, pertinent question. Now he further articulates the completeness of this question. We move on to shloka number 39. Shloka number 39 reads like this. Etanme samshayam Krishna chetumarhasya sheshatah twadanya samshayasyasya cheta nahyupapadyate. Padacheda. Etanme samshayam Krishna chetumarhasya sheshatah twadanya samshayasyasya cheta nahyupapadyate. The Padacheda says, Etat me samshayam Krishna chetum arhasi aseshatah tvat anyaha samshayasya asya cheta nahi upapadyati. The Anvaya, hey Krishna, see, two Krishna Sambodhanas and in between one Mahabahu. Hey Krishna, me etat samshayam asheshatah chetum arhasi. He tvam anyaha tvat anyaha asya samshayasya cheta na upapadyate. Very simple. What does it mean? We click on dictionary. Hey Krishna, oh Krishna, me etat samshayam. Hey, my this samshaya, my this question, my this doubt. Asheshatah, without any balance, without any residue, leftover residue. Not shesha, without any shesha bhada. Okay, completely. Chetum, to dispel, to cut out, to cut asunder, to to kind of annihilate. Chetum, to kill. Okay, to dispel basically. To remove. Arhasi, you are eligible. Okay, only you can. Only you can or you are eligible. He indeed, verily, surely. Tat anyaha, other than you, else than thyself. Asya samshayasya, of this doubt. Cheta, the destroyer, na upapadyati. There is no one else available. There is no one else I can think of. There is no one else I can say is there. Right? Oh Krishna, only you can dispel this doubt of mine without any balance. No, only you can completely take away this question, this doubt of mine. Other than you, I don't see anybody who can take away this doubt. Very pertinent question, right? Yoga Samsiddhi, go for the Yoga Samsiddhi and be in the yoga. See, when you come to the 32nd shloka, 31st shloka, 32nd shloka, no, sarva bhutastam atmanam sarva bhutani, no, sarva bhutastitam yoma bhajatyekatva masitaha sarvatha vartamanopi sayogi mayi vartate. Right? That's the kind of expression that we get, right? You know, sarva bhutastitam yoma, the one, who worships me. And again, bhajati is basically gives himself a part to me. I will not just take the dolak and sing the Krishna bhajan the way we do it. Bhajana is basically offering ourselves into that Parabrahma in all our activities and in everyone that Brahma is seated. No, sarvatha vartamana pat. Sarvatha vartamana is a very beautiful word, right? Vartamana is vartana, like all the activities, and also vartamana is the current, nitya, right? So that's the offering ourselves. So here again he remembers that part of Krishna. Okay, oh Krishna, okay, without you, other than you, there is no one else who can take away this doubt. I agree, I need to be looking at that equanimity. I need to find that Parabrahma in everyone. I need to find my own empathetic self in everyone. I should treat everyone the way I treat myself. All that is fine. But mind is weak. Okay, but you know, in the path of attaining yoga samsiddhi, I will have shraddha, no doubt. I will pledge myself completely, but I will not accomplish that in completeness. Okay, what will happen? Will I not, become completely perished like a dissolved cloud? Okay, other than you, there is no one else who can remove this doubt of mine. I want to be in the path of yoga samsiddhi, but I have this question: is in karma samsiddhi better? At least I will get something immediately rather than having to look at something that's unknown. I really don't know what's going to happen. Right? Beautiful question, very relevant question. But again, now we are led into the second phase of the Bhagavad-Gita. Right? Over is the series of questions from Arjuna, which was constantly seeking what is Shreyaskara for me, how to know what is good for us, how to become that constant kartavya sadhakas without any doubt, without any rest, without any intensity lost in terms of how much gas we can burn in our life to keep on doing kartavya sadhana. Okay, that is being addressed so far. Now he's taking us to the next level. What if I don't achieve it completely? Right? I would have lost the iha sukha and the para sukha. The sukha here, the benefits here, and the benefits there. What is that there? There is a state of yoga samsiddhi. Some people call it as the next life. Some people call it as the Brahmic consciousness, like the way we saw in this website. Okay, but basically it's a yoga samsiddhi. Is karma samsiddhi better? Because at the end of the day, in karma samsiddhi, my manas can be kept happy, my indriyas can be kept happy, my buddhi can be kept happy, my ahankara can be kept happy. But yoga samsiddhi is buddhi grahya matindriyam. It's beyond buddhi grahya and indriya grahya. So it's beyond the grasp of all of these things, right? Now Krishna answers, shloka number 40. Right? Krishna answers, Partha naiveha namutra विनाशस्तस्य विद्यते न हि कल्याणकृत् कश्चित् दुर्गतिं तात गच्छति. पार्थ नैवेह नामुत्र विनाशस्तस्य विद्यते न हि कल्याणकृत् कश्चित् दुर्गतिं तात गच्छति. The Padacheda, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Partha na eva iha na amutra vinashaha tasya vidyate nahi kalyanakrit kaschit durgatim tata he tata gacchati. Right? What does the Anvaya say? Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, He Partha, iha tasya vinashaha na vidyate na amutra eva hi. He tata kaschit kalyanakrit Durgatim na gacchati. What does it mean? Hey Partha. Now this is Partha is also very nice Sambodhana because Pritha is the Yadukula, right? Kunti is from that side. Prithe, she is the Prithe, right? So Partha is Pritha's. So Pritha, gives his relation, the maternal relationship to Arjuna. So it's very dearness, right? Hey Partha, oh, 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 oh son of Pritha, oh son of Kunti. Iha tasya vinashaha na vidyate. Okay, of this yoga samsiddhi. Iha tasya is of him, person who is in the path of yoga samsiddhi but has lost it for some reason, right? Tasya or yoga samsiddhasya. Okay, uh, iha vinashaha na vidyate. There is nothing known here which is destructive of that yoga samsiddhi here. It will not go for a loss. Right? Nasha, see, Nasha is basically Chaturvidha Nasha. Whenever, I think we've been repeating this multiple times. Anityatvam, Deha Hani, Dukkha Prapti, Apurnata. Right? These are the fourfold Nasha. Right? So Vinasha, when we say Vinasha of that yogi, Arurukshu, that's the word we see there. Arurukshohu Munehe, of that person, the one who desires to climb up the path of yoga. Right? Tasya Vinashaha Iha na vidyate. Here there is no Nasha for that person. Na amutra, not hereafter, not in the next life as well. Evahi, okay, indeed itself. Okay, for Hey Tata, oh beloved. Tata is son, Tata is father, Tata is beloved. Very dearness. See, when he has to call him as Tata, it could be a hey child, oh son. Shukatata. Shukatata, Shuka's father. When we see Vishnu Sahasranama for Vyasa, Vyasaya Vishnu Rupa, when we say that Shukatatam Taponhim. So Tata can be father, Tata can be son also, Tata can be beloved, like how this website calls it. Right? Oh dear child. Okay. Kaschit Kalyana Krit. For anyone who has practiced good Kalyana Krit, Durgatim na gacchati. He will never get into Durgati. He will never get into bad situation. He will not have a woe. Right? Like very similar to in the second chapter, he says that Neha Abhikramanasha asti. There is no Abhikramanasha. For whatever we do in this path of Yoga Samsiddhi, there is no loss of effort. And there is no loss of effort here, nor there is a loss of effort hereafter. Amutra. Na iha, na amutra, tasya yoga samsiddhasya vinashaha vidyate is known. Okay. And kalyana krit kaschitapi durgatim na gacchati. A person who has done some good, he will never go somewhere wrong. This is the assurance coming from Bhagavan himself. We will try to do more chintana around this in the next session and then continue with the 41st shloka upward next Saturday. Thanks everyone for joining. 3, 2, 1. Namaste Vasudevaya Preyasa me Priyottama Samasta Guna Sampurna Nirdosha Nandadayine Mukopi Yat Prasadena Mukunda Shayanayate Rajarajayate Rikso Raghavendram Tamashraye. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Have a beautiful week ahead. And a Nirjala Ekadashi blessings to all of you. Jai Shri Krishna.